my name is Cameron Millican, and I'll be presenting on the topic of invasive earthworms in North America. The article that I chose was called "Invasive Earthworms Are Spreading Through Canadian Forests, and That's Bad for Bugs" by Yahoo News. And my primary source that was based on is called "Above Ground Impacts of a Below Ground Invader: How Invasive Earthworms Alter Above Ground Arthropod Communities in a Northern North American Forest." So, the summary of the news story is that earthworms have not been naturally present in the northern United States and Canada since the last ice age. In recent years, human activity has helped invasive earthworms infiltrate ecosystems in North America. In order to assess the relationship between earthworms and other organisms, researchers in Canada used a vacuum device to collect creatures from a forest undergrowth in patches. A chemical was used to draw out the worms in the soil and count them. In the study, there were found to be less insects in areas with a greater number of earthworms. It was observed that plots with the most worms yielded a 61% decrease in insect count, an 18% decrease in amount of different species, and a 27% decrease in total insect mass. In addition to directly competing with some insects for sources, the invasive earthworms had a cascading impact that affected organisms that had no interaction with them as well. Invasive earthworms should be prevented from further infiltration of ecosystems. So, the summary of the primary source is that earthworms have been reintroduced to North America and have had significant consequences on the population of arthropods. In order to assess the above ground changes that are caused by earthworms, a study was conducted in which plants and above ground arthropods were examined in 60 plots of forest in Alberta, Canada. 20 plots of low, medium, and high levels of earthworm invasion were used, resulting in a total of 60 plots. The plots used were 2 by 1 square meters, and half of the area for each plot was used for plant assessment, and the other half for arthropod and earthworm sampling. The earthworms were extracted using a mustard solution and sorting by hand. Arthropods were collected using a vacuum device, and all of the creatures collected were sorted by species, and their biomass was estimated as well. So this is figure 1 from the primary source. It displays the abundance, biomass, and richness found in all arthropods, and that is split into herbivores, omnivores, predators, detrivores, and parasitoids as well. And then for each one of these sets of data, there is low, medium, and high invasion status. And as shown in the data, there was an overall average decrease in richness, biomass, and abundance for arthropods that were not predators and parasitoids. And those are the only groups that benefited in any way, really, on average, from invasion of earthworms. So as I mentioned, it was observed in the study that levels of higher earthworms on average yielded lower arthropod abundance, richness, and biomass than in plots with lower levels of earthworm invasion. The exception to this are the predators and parasitoids, which increased in abundance and biomass respectively with increasing earthworm invasion. It was observed that earthworms had a non-significant effect on the plants, and the study concluded that future studies should assess the influence of invasive earthworms on other communities to draw further conclusions. So, the accuracy of the news story was pretty good. The news story, it did a pretty good job at summarizing the primary source and its representation of the study's results. It gave enough context to understand what was going on in the primary source and why the results matter and what they mean. The only thing that the news story did not include really was that the plants were assessed in the study as well. However, this might have been for the best because it was found in the study that plants did not yield any significant results in the presence of earthworm invasion. And if they had included that information when describing the study, they may have made it too complicated for readers and have distracted from the effects of earthworms on the arthropods, which was the center of the article and the most significant part of the data. So the credits for this presentation were the news story, the invasive earthworms are spreading through Canadian forests and that's bad for bugs, on Yahoo News. And the primary source, above ground impacts of a below ground invader, how invasive earthworms alter above ground arthropod communities in the northern North American forest. That was published on Biology Letters. And the images used, the first one is by Jonathan Kemper on Unsplash, called Black Beads on Person's Hand Photo. And then the second photo used was by Collie Coburn, and it was called Trees and Brown Grass and Forest Nature Photography Photo on Unsplash. Thank you for watching.